There, it's Nathaniel Grimm, and welcome to my latest weekly horoscope and my astrological assessment of the state of the world. Starting Monday of this week, we will never again in our lifetimes be able to say that Neptune is in Pisces. And with Neptune re-entering Aries and positioning itself at a world point of the zodiac, the world is definitely primed for a new beginning and a reimagining of our collective ideals and dreams. As we dive into this week's astrology, I'd like to let you know that I do have a select few 2-hour readings available on my website. So go check out my site to book a reading with me. So on Monday, January 26th, Neptune, the planet that opens our aura to the ether and to collective energies and emotions, is leaving its home sign of Pisces, where it has been since 2012. Neptune also governs our ability to open ourselves to the universal, to the divine, in a way that transcends or melts the ego. However, it can also encompass all forms of escape, including addiction. And as Neptune waded into its watery ruling sign in 2012, some of the world's most powerful drugs were being unleashed. For example, nearly half of US adults owned a smartphone by 2012, reaching majority adoption in 2013, and that of course was a tipping point. Instagram was purchased by Facebook in 2012, securing its future basically and becoming one of the stickiest social media platforms in the world. And throughout the 2010s, streaming platforms like Netflix experienced exponential subscriber growth, and we saw the golden age of television, as critically acclaimed shows and movies graced our screens from the convenience of our own home. Social media's ongoing maturation and the constant flood of films and shows really allowed us to step into this make-believe dreamland, where we could either present ourselves in any way we'd like on social media, or we could revere celebrities and develop a sort of parasocial relationship with them. And so Neptune in Pisces ushered in this era where we could step into a fantasy land and fully disconnect from reality. In some sense, we began to only get a curated image of someone, or the sequence of events in an important story got distorted based on how something was edited or important details were missing. But as Saturn, the more dour, practical planet, entered co-presence with Neptune in Pisces in 2023, people began to question what they were perceiving through a digital lens. Or they came to experience the disappointment of realizing that the guru they were following or the celebrity they idolized could not hold up to the ideal image they were projecting. So now Neptune will enter Aries. To contextualize this, Neptune was briefly in Aries last year from March 30th until October 22nd. So we've already gotten a preview of what this transit has in store for us. And I think as Neptune enters Aries, we're going to crave seeing things with our own eyes again, and we'll reintegrate our most basic instincts when striving towards an ideal. But Neptune isn't vanishing as a planet. It's still going to aspect other planets and occupy a new sign, and the sign of Aries will color our ideals and fantasies. In Aries, courage, brazen action, and heroic feats will be idealized, and I'm sure that there will be many examples set early on where somebody stood up to authority, or kept fighting despite the odds stacked against them. Or maybe someone takes the risk to create their own society or system. Posters of these tenacious heroes, whoever they become, could be hanging in many people's bedrooms in the coming years. The drawback of Neptune in Aries is that we could glorify this sense of audacity to the detriment of diplomacy and cooperativeness. And if we come to revere winners, that implies that there have to be losers and a competition involved. Hopefully not a war, though. It's also worth adding that as AI-generated content proliferates, people will desire more human content again. They'll want to see how people improvise based on their instincts, how they react to things under pressure, rather than watching AI pre-program the actions or move according to a script. People will want to watch other people make decisions when the stakes are really high. Think like live sports. People might also be experiencing a sort of hangover from their digital binge of recent years, and we could really start to see how it's affected our brain, because Aries rules the head and the brain. And many of you could veer away from social media or from portraying yourselves in unrealistic ways on social media. Now turn to the Aries ruled house of your birth chart to gauge the area of life where you're going to be opening your energy field to the divine. But these will also be the areas where you could be more prone to deception. It's also worth noting that the last time Neptune entered Aries was 1861, right when the Civil War officially began in the United States. And if you track the news now, well, you can certainly see echoes of the concept of some kind of internal clash. Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey recently said regarding the presence of ICE in Minneapolis, quote, "We cannot be at a place right now in America where we have two governmental entities that are literally fighting one another. Tensions are unmistakably rising, and Neptune in Aries could certainly be setting the stage for a bigger showdown, especially when paired with the fact that Uranus is entering Gemini this year, which was also the case during the Civil War. Now I want to highlight another major transit this week. Mars and Pluto are linking up this Tuesday, January 27th, at 3 degrees of Aquarius, and I really think this will only ratchet up the intensity. There's no question that Mars and Pluto together can be incredibly destructive. And when I see Mars and Pluto in a hard aspect in someone's birth chart, it signifies the energy of bullying or being bullied. Most readings I've done for people with this aspect have either been bullied or they tormented others. But ideally then they transmuted this energy and learned to fight for the underdog. Or they become like whistleblowers and take down a powerful entity. When the collective encounters this transit, especially in the sign of Aquarius, a tyrant could be brought to their knees. Or countries could bully one another. By the way, the conjunction between Mars and Pluto will initiate a 2-year cycle between these planets, with the opposition on October 3rd of this year marking the peak. They'll meet again on January 11th, 2028, shortly after the Pluto North Node conjunction, which honestly will probably symbolize continual waves of revolutionary energy. We have a long bridge to walk to reach the Saturn-Uranus conjunction in 2032, when I believe a more enlightened age will begin. Now, if you've got stuff in the first decan of Scorpio, Taurus, Leo, and Aquarius, but especially Leo and Aquarius, then the Mars-Pluto conjunction is definitely going to help you concentrate all your energy and drive onto a fixed point. And there could be some battles for control over something, but you will also be in a position to transmute your more primal ferocity into something that actually promotes the evolution of your soul. Or you could face your fears head on and overcome them. How will you channel this intensity in a transcendent way? Now let's talk about how Aquarius season is going to manifest for the fixed signs. It's not such a sleepy time for the fixed signs, Aquarius, Leo, Taurus, and Scorpio, because many of the planets are in their modality for the next few weeks. And this combined with Uranus stationing direct soon is giving these signs the capacity to fully reinvent themselves after maybe balking at the opportunity for many years now. Uranus is going to move forward in Taurus for the last time in this cycle in early February, closing out its transit in the fixed Earth sign in late April of this year. And as it stations direct, it's making sure that it's shaken loose the foundation for these signs, which are known for their persistence and in some cases their obstinance. But Uranus in Taurus has forced these signs to either overhaul their values or get reacquainted with them, and also to value fluctuation, change, and the unexpected, to embrace these shock points as opportunities for reinvention. And this connects to the Aquarius stellium because Uranus rules Aquarius. And so these 4 signs should embrace the final stage of their reinvention process by tapping into these Aquarius transits. Turn to the Aquarius-ruled house of your birth chart to find the avenue for expression. And then the Taurus-ruled house of your chart is also indicating an area where surprising events could unfold out of nowhere. But I believe the Aquarius house is where you can exert more control and express your vitality. And this energy will be present throughout Aquarius season. So fixed signs, what's overdue for reinvention in your life? Now let's shift gears and talk about the Leo full moon, which will certainly help you release something in an unbridled, creative manner that will only aid you in this reinvention. The most exuberant, exhilarating full moon in 2026 is coming up on February 1st. It's in Leo, the sun-ruled, youthful sign that reminds us to embrace the playful elements in life. And the full moon illuminates and highlights this need to embrace our inner sense of joy. The ruling celestial body of Leo, the sun, naturally sits in Aquarius right now, flanked by all 3 personal planets and Pluto. And this is giving you a clear mechanism for basking in your creativity. Aquarius, remember, sits on the opposite side of Leo, albeit on the same axis. And in my view, both of these signs deal with the theme of expression. Leo expresses the self, and Aquarius expresses the unique hopes and dreams of the group. So the idea here is to infuse your creative energy into a social or group setting, and let that group be sort of an amplifier for your creativity. And having fun is a form of catharsis and release on this full moon, or even stepping into your inner romantic. Now, we just got through Capricorn season, which was ultra serious, which isn't a negative thing. Ideally, you secured some very committed relationships, friendships, or you settled into a new job. But now we're being asked to enjoy the present moment, beaming with a sense of camaraderie. And this playful release will help you reintegrate something recreational into your daily rhythm. Given this full moon's position at 13 degrees of Leo, major placements from about 10 to 15 degrees of Scorpio, Leo, Aquarius, Aquarius, and Taurus will be purging or letting go of stress in a way that will reshape a core part of their lives. Are you going to remember to just be creative again and to have fun? Now, I want to conclude this week's episode with more of an educational piece on how to fundamentally conceptualize the field of astrology. So this text right here, the Kybalion, shaped my thinking as an astrologer probably more than any other text, including astrology books. The Kybalion really encapsulates the theories and principles underpinning Hermeticism, which is a whole school of thought associated with Hermes Trismegistus, a mythical figure of sorts who really establishes this esoteric knowledge. And I just want to quickly explain how essential these teachings are as you're learning astrology. In many ways, I would say one cannot properly conceive of astrology without first understanding these Hermetic principles. Instead of providing a full synopsis of the text, today I just want to highlight one of the principles that undergirds, again, the entire field of astrology. One is the principle of polarity, which posits that everything in our universe has an inherent duality to it, where everything exists on a continuum or spectrum with two poles. And instead of conceiving them as opposites, they are more so attributes that vary by degree. One of the most obvious examples is hot and cold. On the face of it, they seem like opposites, but they really exist on the same continuum of temperature, just on either side of that continuum. And if we veer towards the middle, we can't really identify a specific discrete moment when we transition from hot to cold. So naturally, there is a spectrum. And this view can easily be applied to the zodiac, which consists not only of 12 signs, but really 6 pairs of signs, each on their own axis or continuum. So when you're studying astrology, you cannot speak of Scorpio without considering it in the context of Taurus. And each axis either expresses the masculine or feminine archetype. And this represents its own type of more fundamental duality. And this reflects the 7th principle in Hermeticism, the principle of gender. And you can see the archetype of gender in everything. Masculine energy moves outward, feminine energy brings inward. In astrology, the sun is the masculine, the moon is the feminine, with the moon receiving the sun's light, which is radiating outward. You can even think about the breath in as feminine, the breath out as masculine. In astrology concerns the reconciliation of opposites. And you can see how these genders play off of each other in a rhythmic fashion, which I'll cover in a future episode. For now, I want to home in on the idea of polarity and its application in astrology. Now, you can actually see how the concept of polarity provides the key to understanding the evolutionary process for each zodiac sign. Now, before I articulate this, remember that the ideal state in many spiritual traditions is the state of balance, finding the midpoint or the point of moderation, finding the center, the spine, between the right and left sides, being in the present moment between the past and the future, finding Aristotle's golden mean, which is founded upon the idea that virtue lies at the midpoint between two vices or extremes. And you can absolutely apply this to your understanding of the zodiac signs and how they grow. And so, for example, instead of just telling a Scorpio stellium to embrace their intensity and dive ever deeper into the psyche, I would argue that instead, a Scorpio will function much more effectively if they discover their inner Taurus, whether or not they have any planets in Taurus in their chart, so they can be grounded as they go on these psychological excursions. A Leo can be expressive without being overly egoic by harnessing their inner Aquarius and considering the impact on the group, and so on. So the conclusion here is that the shadow side of any zodiac sign is that sign without integrating its opposite. This Hermetic perspective on astrology is invaluable, and I really do think it clarifies the zodiac and the purpose of astrology, finding our talents through those stelliums or through those concentrations of energy, but also finding very clear pathways to balance and centeredness. So I firmly believe that Hermeticism, which actually predates astrology, is the fundamental starting point before studying astrology in a literal sense. Like, don't just memorize the signs and their traits moving from Aries to Pisces. There are an even number of signs for a reason, also an even number of elements. So again, always consider the opposite sign and how to achieve centeredness and balance between the two. Does this confirm or alter your thinking on astrology? Thanks so much for watching this week's edition. Be sure to subscribe to keep getting updated on these shows as they're published. Also, you can get the details on how every new and full moon this year is going to affect you by downloading my 2026 horoscopes, which are still available on my website. And again, I have a limited set of 2-hour readings on my website, and I'm opening new slots every week, so keep checking my site for openings. And for those of you who enjoyed this educational snippet at the end, yes, I will be teaching a Fundamentals of Astrology course in the near future. See you soon.